On this week's show, eBay and some of their affiliate sites are having some technical issues. There's some tax updates you might want to be aware of, and if you've shipped something to Canada recently, you might be entitled to a refund. What is up, Galaxians? Welcome to episode number 275 of the Galaxy CDs, Rocks, and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. My name is Ryan, and I'm going to be your host. We've got about a half a dozen, maybe 7 news updates today, including some technical issues that have plagued eBay and some of their affiliated sites over the weekend, a couple of tax updates that you might want to be aware of, and some information about shipping to Canada. I will, of course, leave timestamps down below to everything so that if you want to go to a particular story, you can, or at least a particular type of story, you can do that. We've also got a pretty big What Sold recap at the back end of the show, so you'll want to stick around for that. With that, let's get into this reselling news.
News updates.
Never a good time for technical issues, but eBay and some of their affiliate sites had some problems over the Black Friday weekend. eBay-owned TCG Player, which is their trading card company, suffered a major Black Friday outage, which was causing duplicate orders and orders not to go through, and of course sending users into a panic. This is an eBay-owned marketplace, TCG Player, and they're having a rough start to Black Friday shopping as an unexpected database error caused a site-wide outage and duplicated orders. They posted to X, formerly Twitter, saying, "We are experiencing an unexpected database issue at this time and anticipate that it will be resolved shortly." Buyers were saying they had 42 pending orders due to the site crash. What's going to happen? Am I going to get charged for all those? Here's one that said it took 47 minutes for an order to go through. Another one said, of course, that there should be compensation for this disaster to both buyers and sellers because a lot of people wait months all year for this one-time event. And then if they get screwed over, that is very bad for a business. There's never a good time, again, for technical problems. But Black Friday weekend, when you're running what is one of your biggest promotions of the year, is absolutely the worst time to have that happen. The technical snafu came as TCG Player just kicked off their annual Cyber Weekend sale, offering 10% store credit on every order. This article, which appears over on Value Added Resource, and of course will be linked in the show notes and the video description down below, has all kinds of quotes from different buyers who were experiencing problems. If you were trying to buy something on TCG Player, or you are a seller over there that experienced some of these issues, let us know in the comments down below if you're watching on YouTube or if you happen to be listening over on Spotify. But there were all kinds. Here's one that said, "I have the one order that went through and 39 pending orders in my order history. One order went through, 20 pending," and on and on and on. Just a real mess. TCG Player did post an update later on X saying that they were working to resolve the issue and that users would not be charged for any duplicated pending orders. Again, if you are a buyer or a seller over there, let us know in the comments. Did this impact you? Did it negatively impact your business? If you are a seller, were you double charged or more? If you were a buyer, were you able to buy the things that you intended to buy? Tell us a little bit about your experience over the Black Friday holiday over at TCG Player. But again, really bad timing. Unfortunate for both buyers and sellers, and of course, ultimately for TCG Player, and another black eye, unfortunately, for eBay, which is experiencing another one with the latest update, apparently, to their Android mobile app, which is causing degraded image resolution and slow page loading. eBay's latest mobile app update for Android degrades the buyer experience with low resolution images and slow loading times. This was in the run-up to the critical Black Friday Cyber Weekend. This began happening on the 26th, so this was the middle of last week after a new update was published for the mobile app. Users have been reporting the issue in the eBay community and, of course, across social media. One wrote in, "Using the latest Android app, I woke today to find an annoying bug, which is causing all pics to appear only in very low resolution. It is affecting every listing, mine as well as any others I look at. The writer said, after clicking on a listing, the main picture appeared for a split second in high res, and then as the rest of the page loads, the image converted to low res, and that's how it remains. If the writer clicked to open an image, it is also low res, and if you tried to zoom in to see details, those were essentially pixelated beyond recognition. This wasn't the case yesterday. All pictures were loading fine before today. I've tried wiping cache and data, reinstalling the app to no avail. I switched Wi-Fi connections, tried on mobile data. It's all the same low res. My internet connection is great, hundreds of megabits per second. I cannot see any settings that toggle the resolution of images. As a comic book seller, it's important I'm able to see high res images of potential purchases, of course, to check condition. If I go to eBay on a browser, all the images load in high res just fine. It seems to be an app only problem. As I conduct my business exclusively via my phone and I routinely browse through perhaps 2,000 listings a day, it's not practical to use the browser website instead of the app. But right now, the app isn't functioning either. They showed some pictures of what this looks like. If you're watching on YouTube, you can probably see here how pixelated and low res these are by the standards of, maybe 1995 internet. They probably looked pretty good by the standards of today, and the smartphones, not so much so. Liz over at Value Added Resource put the app update theory to the test with her own Android phone, initially still using the app version 6.185.1.1, and everything was loading normally in the expected amount of time and at the expected resolution. As soon as she went to 6.186.0.2, everything in the eBay app became very slow to load. Everything else is the same as far as Wi-Fi, device, etc. Only the app version changed. On the item pages, it loaded a low-res version of the main image, and or some of the image thumbnails initially were just totally missing and only loaded after more than 10 seconds. Let me know again in the comments if you've experienced this. So far, knock wood, it appeared that it was only an issue with the Android app. There had not been any reports of similar issues for iOS, for Apple users. eBay community staff had responded to reports of the issue and were forwarding it to the mobile app team. I'm not on the latest update. I turned off automatic updates for this very reason, because sometimes they can be a little buggy, and this time of year, I don't want any bugs. I need my stuff to work right now. So I've not updated yet. I don't know if there is an update to the update that has fixed this as of recording. That does not appear to be the case. Again, let me know in the comments down below how the Android app is working for you. And if you're an iPhone user, have you experienced any problems? It seems like so far, at least, this was specific to Android. Piling on over at eBay. Speaking of technical issues, this one goes clear back to the summer. eBay Australia shocks sellers with sudden bills for old fees and shipping due to a technical issue. This is not the first time something like this has cropped up on a site, but it always catches people unawares. And again, the timing of this probably could not be any worse. Some sellers in Australia are getting an unhappy holiday surprise, receiving email notices that they owe hundreds of dollars in shipping and fees that were previously unpaid due to a technical issue that dates back to July of 2024. Affected sellers have taken to the eBay Australia community to find if the notice is real and has been received by others, with some posting screenshots of the email, which read in part, "We identified a technical error on our platform, which meant that some eBay fees and selling costs, including charges for postage and return labels, since July 2024 were not applied to sellers' accounts. Normally, these would be charged, of course, at the time of transaction or the label being generated. We sincerely apologize for any confusion or inconvenience this may have caused. To correct this error, postage label costs of whatever dollar amount, which were not yet charged to you, will be applied to your account on Tuesday, 3rd December. So coming up on this coming Tuesday, if you were caught up in this, you're going to get a big charge from eBay Australia. Missed charges, they go on. For eBay fees, return labels, and other selling costs will be applied separately in early 2025, and we'll be in touch again before this happens. So there's two tranches of these catch-up charges that are coming. One this coming week on Tuesday, and a second one sometime after the first of the year. I guess if you can give any kudos to eBay for at least splitting this up over two different charges rather than one big lump. There's no indication in this article that tells us how long this went on before it became apparent to eBay and they caught it and figured it out. I guess my question would be, why didn't sellers notice at some point that they were not being charged for these things? Every seller, of course, has their own process. I look at my charges literally on an item by item basis every single day when I process orders. So if something looks off, I usually am able to catch it right away and start to either plan for the fact that eventually I'm going to get charged for this stuff, or to reach out to the platform and say, hey, I noticed that I'm not getting charged for whatever. I don't use eBay labels. And of course, I'm not in Australia for starters, so this doesn't affect me personally. But this is something that as a seller, you should be watching for and should not come as a surprise. You notice a glitch right away when you're getting overcharged for something. We also need to be cognizant of those times where, for whatever reason, through a glitch or some other fault, we're not being charged correctly or undercharged or not charged at all for things, and do something in our own accounting processes to account for the fact that those bills eventually are going to come due. This is not extra money coming out of your accounts. These are just built up charges that were not paid previously. So pay attention, I guess, is the moral of the story on both sides. For the fact that this has gone on since July and eBay Australia is just now catching up with it is crazy. That was 6 months ago, 5 months ago. Anyway, those charges are going to come starting next week. If you are in eBay Australia, let us know if you got caught up in this and what kind of billing you're going to see. There are people claiming online charges anywhere from $125 upwards of $700 in catch-up charges. So this is a significant amount of money. And again, coming at a terrible time. If you were paying attention to your accounting, you didn't spend all that extra money because you knew that bill was going to come eventually, but still no bueno for eBay. As if to add fuel to the fire, eBay popularity in Australia wanes as Temu shines in a new report from Fonto. Australian consumer research company Fonto has released new data ranking popular e-commerce marketplace, revealing that eBay has dropped to third place as Temu growth continues. The report shows Temu passing eBay for the first time in October of 2024, knocking the once favorite e-commerce site down a notch, while Amazon, of course, continues to dominate. Launching in early 2023, Temu's share of spend in the category jumped to 20% for the month of October, with eBay at 17%, dropping to its lowest point since Fonto started recording market-level data. This continues a steady decline for eBay from a peak of 43% at the beginning of 2022. Amazon continues to lead the category, capturing just over half of all online retail spend during October, a 16% gain on their share during the same period last year. Additionally, October marked the second consecutive month where Temu's market penetration, 10.9%, exceeded eBay's at 10.4%. Their growth continues to Temu chew away market share from eBay, probably also to some extent from Amazon and a lot of smaller sites as well. Man, that was a loud pop. Did you hear that? Whew, I don't know where that come from, but wow. Anyway, the data comes from more than 80,000 Australians who voluntarily share their financial transactions data privately and securely with Fonto so that they can present this report. eBay continues to downplay the importance of Temu as a competitor, saying that the low average value and new consumer goods from China aren't really a threat to eBay's bread and butter, non-new, in-season consumer-to-consumer core strength, or their luxury and enthusiast items that are at the heart of their, quote, focus vertical strategy. There is a certain point of that I agree with, but while those particular items may not be competitive, if you will, on eBay, the fact that people are purchasing those is taking dollars away from the other categories on eBay. So there's only so much money to go around. And if people are buying these cheap things on Temu, I absolutely agree that they would not probably necessarily be buying those same cheap things on eBay. So that item purchase maybe isn't being stolen from eBay, but those dollar amounts absolutely are being moved from other sites to Temu. So it is, for me, even though it's maybe not an absolute direct like for like competitor, it is absolutely chewing up market share and reducing cash flow at these sites. Contrary to those public statements, eBay has quietly been growing sales from China over last year, making it eBay's third largest market when measured by seller location, with much of those sales consisting of cross-border trade coming from China to the US and other countries, particularly in motor parts and accessories, which is one of eBay's largest categories. So let me know. I've not shopped on Temu. I've not downloaded the app. I haven't looked at it. It's not, from what I've seen in the ads, there's really nothing there that I would want. Again, it's not a direct competitor to me as a vintage bookseller, beyond the fact that it is, again, it's taking money out of the market, transferring it from maybe other goods into these kind of cheap Chinese new items. So let me know what you think of that. But eBay continues to hemorrhage market share now to a really brand new, essentially, competitor. A couple of tax updates you want to be aware of. This first one, Whatnot sent out a notice last week that they're going to begin to charge sellers tax on commission, sales tax on commission and payment fees for some states. So this is not broadly across the country. It's very specific to states who have legislation on their books where they require these sites to collect sales tax on certain service type fees. Other sites apparently have been doing this for some time, or at least are supposed to have been doing it. And beginning early next year, Whatnot is finally going to implement this. They're advising sellers they may see changes to their fees beginning December 2nd, 2024. So actually it's today as I sit here, or tomorrow as I sit here and record this, as taxes will be assessed on commission and payment processing fees in some locations to comply with state laws. The notice read in part, in accordance with state law, Whatnot will be required to start collecting sales tax on Whatnot's commission and payment processing fee in the following states beginning December 2nd. Commissions, if you're in the District of Columbia, Hawaii, New Mexico, and West Virginia, your commission payments are going to be, or I guess, what would that be? Is that the commission that the 8% that Whatnot is taking, or is that your actual payout? It's almost got to be the commission that Whatnot is taking. Payment processing fees, Connecticut has a special 1% rate. Hawaii, New Mexico, Ohio, and South Dakota will be whatever the full sales tax rate is in your particular jurisdiction. Texas is the standard rate reduced by 20%, and West Virginia, again, is whatever the standard rate is. So if your tax rate in your particular area is 5%, the 2.9% plus 30 cents, whatever that amount comes out to, 50 cents, 75 cents, whatever it is, Whatnot is now going to collect the 5% sales tax on whatever that amount is. So be aware of that. That's going to be a new fee that's going to start showing up. Sounds like effective on Monday, December 2nd, if you live in one of those states. And this would appear to be based on the residence of the seller, not where the item is or is going, where the buyer was. This is because you are the user. You are paying this commission. You are paying this service fee. So you're responsible for the sales tax, and Whatnot is going to collect and pay that on your behalf, as it were. These taxes will automatically be deducted from your order earnings and remitted to the respective state authority by Whatnot. You'll be able to see what the taxes are and that you've been charged on the order receipt and, of course, on your annual seller statement. Whatnot is obligated to charge this tax per the applicable state law, which has probably been true the entire time they've been around. They've just now gotten around to implement it. Please keep in mind these rates vary by city and state. For more information on your specific tax rate, you need to visit your state tax authority website. Sales tax exemptions for the purchase of items for resale and other specific exemptions do not apply to taxes charged on Whatnot fees. So if you have a tax exempt certificate to buy whatever, clothing, books, whatever it is, on Whatnot, that will still apply to those purchases. But these taxes on these service fees that get paid Your tax exemption certificate is not good for that. They did provide an example of how this would affect a seller located in Texas who sells an item for $100, including buyer shipping and taxes. The order subtotal, $100. The total payment processing fee at 2.9 plus 30 was $3.20. A sales tax rate in Houston is 8.25%. It gets reduced by 20%, making it 6.6%. So the total sales tax on the payment processing fee is 21 cents. Again, this is not a huge amount on any single individual sale, but if you are a big seller in a state that has a law on their books that is going to require this to be paid over the aggregate, it could add up to a fairly significant amount of money. I'm not yet selling enough stuff on there that it looks like it's going to be that big a deal for me. But be aware, if you are a seller on Whatnot in one of those states, you should have gotten an email from Whatnot, but I know a lot of us are not real good about reading those messages. So here I am to remind you that bad news is coming down the pike. There is a link in the article to the full policy page, which explains the update. It shows that taxes may apply to show promotion and boost fees as well for sellers in Hawaii, New Mexico, and South Dakota. So again, if you're buying a service, and these are things that typically, historically, were never taxed, like back in the day, when I worked in retail, Ohio did not collect sales tax even on delivery fees. So if you bought a washer and dryer and you paid $50 to the store to have it delivered, that particular thing was not taxable. That has since changed, and now you're starting to see it roll into all of these other areas as well. Services that are provided, particularly by online outfits, are now also being charged this sales tax. Yay. The article points out, as I did earlier, it appears that Whatnot may simply be catching up with other platforms and applying tax on seller fees in some states, not that these are new laws that are suddenly in play. Some sites are doing better with this. We've talked about in the past the Colorado online sales tax fee. It's a special per order fee that Etsy was not properly calculating up until a little while ago. There's a similar one up in Minnesota. So there's just so many other little fees and taxes that these companies need to charge. And this is one where, at least finally, unfortunately for us, Whatnot is catching up. This is a different one. So this article came out on the 28th, and there were several users who said Mercari was now forcing 20 and sometimes 30% discount to promote items with no notice to sellers. Mercari U.S. sellers were waking up to an unpleasant surprise ahead of Black Friday, Cyber Weekend holiday shopping rush, as an apparent update to promote items feature now requires 20 to 30% discounts with no notice or public announcement. The promote feature usually requires seller to permanently drop their price by at least 5%, and the fact that the Mercari help and policy page still states that was the minimum at the time this was happening. In my case, I went into my mobile app on Android, and both offers to likers, which have always been for me 10%, and just regular promotions was also at 10%. I was not seeing 20, but I was also not seeing 5. So again, something that is either being rolled out or beta tested, or there's something going on there where some sellers were seeing just massive forced reductions in order to send out a promotion on an item. Very strange. Reddit was buzzing with reports that the minimum has now been raised again to 20 or 30% with no notice. Some sellers saying it was 20, others saying it was 30. Here is, again, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see a screenshot. New price, 20% less than your lowest historical price. Again, I just checked mine before I hit record. Mine is still showing 10. So inconsistent across the board over in Mercari about how it's being implemented. Some sellers say they also saw a note when trying to promote indicating that it's a new policy to promote, quote, quick sales, and others say they're still seeing the discount amount at as low as 5%, indicating that it could again be a phased rollout, or that Mercari may be targeting a higher discount requirement to certain items or sellers, but again, based on who knows what criteria. If you're watching on YouTube, or listening on Spotify, let me know in the comments down below. Did this affect you? Did you see a change in the percentage amount that you had to discount? The offer program has been a hot button for a lot of sellers on Mercari because the price always has to be whatever, 5 or 10% already below your lowest historical price. So if you already marked it down 10%, your next offer has to be 10% lower than that offer, and so on. So it really quickly gets to be pretty expensive. But if it is now 20 or in some cases 30%, that's really no good. Another quick tax update. IRS has provided a timeline update for the 1099K threshold, pushing the $600 limit out now until 2026, which is good news for sellers. The IRS is providing some small relief to online marketplaces and sellers, confirming, finally, a phased step-down approach to implementing the lower 1099K reporting requirements and setting thresholds at more than $5,000 for this year, $2,500 for next, and then finally in 2026 it will go down to the $600 that was proposed several years ago. The Internal Revenue Service today issued Notice 2024-85, providing transition relief for third-party settlement organizations, also known as payment apps and online marketplaces, regarding transactions during calendar years 2024 and 5. Under the guidance issued today, these firms will be required to report transactions when the amount of total payments for those transactions is more than $5,000 in 2024, more than $2,500 in 25, and more than $600 in calendar year 2026 and thereafter. So this has been a big push. All of these sites continue to lobby pretty hard against this thing. The online marketplaces like eBay and Etsy have been dedicating significant government relations resource to the issue, lobbying for reforms as they say the $600 threshold will significantly burden small businesses and casual consumer sellers on their platform. Again, remember that the transaction limit was essentially eliminated. It used to be you had to have 200 transactions and $20,000 in transactions. Now it can be one transaction, if it exceeds those dollar thresholds, you're going to get a 1099K, whether you really should be getting one or not. Again, some credit to them for pushing this back and giving us a phased rollout so that people, not only individual sellers, but the companies can adapt to having to roll out additional copies of this form to more and more people. But for my money, $600 is way too low. Last thing in the news, if you have shipped anything to Canada recently, we've talked about over the last couple of weeks that the Canada Post is currently on strike. There's no apparent resolution coming anytime soon, and the United States Postal Service, as of November 29th, has suspended delivery of mail and packages to Canada due to that strike. USPS said some packages already received but stuck in transit will be returned to senders, who are then entitled to a full refund when service to the country of destination is suspended. A postal advisory on Friday noted for already deposited items, Postal Service International Service Center employees will endorse the items as mail service suspended, returned to sender, and then place them in the mail stream for return. According to DMM 604.9.2.3, customers are entitled to a full refund of their postage costs when service to the country of destination is suspended. The detailed procedures to obtain refunds for retail postage can be found through the following link, which will be in this article, which of course will be linked in the show notes and the video description down below. This article appeared over on e-commerce Bytes to give credit for that one. So if you have shipped anything to Canada and have seen that it looks like it's coming back to you, there's a good possibility that it is, but you should be able to get your money back for the label so that you're not eating the postage when you inevitably then have to refund the customer. That, my friends, is the reselling news. Again, another week of quite a bit going on over there. Most of it, unfortunately, not great. But the tax thing is important to know. I know it's not like super thrilling type stuff, but it is something you need to know about, particularly if you're a seller over on Whatnot and you start seeing this extra bill. With that out of the way, let's get into some what sold. It was another really busy week for me over on essentially all the platforms, probably with the exception of Whatnot. I didn't have any really big sales on Whatnot. I did sell over 3 sales on Whatnot, 29 items. So that wasn't too hateful, but it was a grand total of $50. So that experiment continues apace. Not going great, not going terribly. I've got, again, shows scheduled through the end of December, and we'll see how that works out. The other platforms, Etsy and eBay in particular, were really good this week. I don't think I've got anything from Mercari. This first item over on Etsy, Living Chemistry by Aaron's Bush and Easley, a Gin and Company illustrated hardcover textbook from way back in 1942. This was part of a big estate buyout I did a couple of months ago, 650 odd books. My net cost of goods sold on this was a whopping 38 cents. I had it listed for $23.99. It sold for $21.59 plus shipping. I paid a flat $3 in fees, no offsite ad fee, $6.88 to ship. My total costs were $11.87. Net profit $18.21. Again, I talk about all the time these old science, chemistry, engineering textbooks. I usually will grab them if I can get them for a couple of bucks or less. They're usually pretty decent, not necessarily super fast flips. As I said, I think in one of my lives recently, the odds of selling any one in particular book are not real good, but if you got enough of them, you're going to sell some. And this is another example of that. Another sale on Etsy, The Shoemaker's Dream by Mildred Shell, illustrated by Masahiro Kasoya, I believe, 1990. This was a 4th printing hardcover that was signed by the writer. This, again, sold on Etsy, listed for $24.99 and sold for $22.49. This was from the same estate buyout, so another 38-cent cost of goods sold. Order total $28.75. My fees, $2.87, $6.13 to ship it. Left me with a net profit on this cool children's book of $17.74. Interesting book from Dayton, Ohio, Reading the Signs of the Times, the University of Dayton in the 21st Century. I picked this up at an estate sale, I think it was in August. There was a bunch of, it was a sale in Dayton with a bunch of historical books about Dayton University and the surrounding area. This one was new in its plastic wrap. This had never been opened or read. This sold on eBay for $23.99 plus shipping. I paid $4.83 in fees, no promoted fee on this one. Yay me. Shipping was $6.13. I paid $1 for this. A $23.99 sale led to a net profit of $18.19 for Reading the Signs of the Times, University of Dayton in the 21st Century. It was an illustrated hardcover, new in package. Another one on eBay, another of those old textbooks, Introduction to Electromagnetic Fields and Waves by Corson and Lorraine, illustrated hardcover from back in 1962. This was part of a big bunch of these I bought at an estate closeout for an average of 94 cents a piece. Listed and sold on eBay for $24.99 plus shipping. I paid $4.87 in fees, $2.33 for promoted fees, $6.13 to ship it. 94 cents was my cost of goods. An item listed and sold for $24.99 led to a net profit of $16.85. Another one on eBay, a really old German grammar book, The Complete German Grammar by James Werman from 1881. This was a German English language hardcover published by A.S. Barnes & Co. This was also part of that big 650 book lot, listed for $29.99. Got a watcher. I sent out an offer and sold it for $25.49 plus shipping. $4.73 in fees, no promoted fee on this one. $5.38 to ship. Net profit, $20.38 from this book from 1881. This is part of the big 1800 book lot that I just completed a few weeks ago. Meyer Burger's New York, 1963 printing, hardcover with its dust jacket, published by Random House. This was in pretty good shape. Had it listed for $29.99, received an offer of $27 because I own it for 50 whole cents. That seemed like a good deal, and I went ahead and sold it. The buyer's total was $34.97, including tax. I paid $5.11 in fees, $2.45 for promoted listings fees, $5.38 to ship it, a 50-cent cost of goods sold. My total costs $16.03, leaving me with a net profit of $18.94. Another one from that same big buyout, The Architecture of Fantasy, Utopian Building and Planning in Modern Times. This is a big, almost coffee table sized book from 1962 that was in really, really nice condition. Had it listed for $34.99, got a watcher, sent out an offer, and sold it for $29.74 plus shipping. The buyer's total was $37.73. I paid $5.48 in fees, $2.64 for promoted listings fees, $6.13 to ship it. My cost of goods sold was just 50 cents. This one was a net profit of $21.12. Isn't that a Rush album? Let me know if you get the joke. Here's one from the recent big science fiction pickup I did up in the Cleveland area. This is a book club edition, hardcover in its dust jacket from 1979 of the classic Ray Bradbury book, Fahrenheit 451, published by Del Rey Ballantyne. I, to be fair, have no idea why this particular book club edition holds such value. But these were comping anywhere from $40 to $50. I listed mine for $44.99, got an offer on this one of $40.49. I'm into it for 65 cents, so I went ahead and took that deal. The buyer paid a total of $49.27. I paid $4.66 in fees, no ad fee on this one. $4.63 to ship it. Again, my cost of goods sold was just 63 cents. So this $40.49 sale led to a net profit of $35.18. That is a good deal. That was over on Etsy, by the way. eBay, That Dark and Bloody River, Chronicles of the Ohio River Valley by Alan W. Eckert, who's written all kinds of historical books. This was a hardcover in its dust jacket, again from that big 650 book purchase. Had it listed for $49.99, received an offer of $42, which I took. The buyer's total was $51.11. My fees were $7.28 and $3.58, respectively. $6.13 to ship. Cost of goods sold, again, just 38 cents. Net profit, $30.76 for this book by Alan W. Eckert. His stuff is usually pretty good, so if you find any of his books out in the wild, they're absolutely worth at least comping while you're out. This is from, again, that 1800 book purchase that I just recently did. This is one of those things that was just kind of stuck in one of the boxes. Is actually not a book. This is the Edward Wormley Dunbar, the Janus House magazine reprint collection from 1958. So this is essentially a folder of marketing material that are reprints from furniture and home decorating magazines from the 1950s about this particular Janus House Dunbar collection of furniture. Really unusual piece in really nice condition. I looked it up, the Janus House stuff, the Dunbar stuff. I didn't see anything like this, but some of their ads and catalogs were doing reasonably well. The actual furniture looked pretty good. So I put this up starting at an auction, I think at $29.99, and it ultimately sold for $47. This was, again, part of that big lot, so I'm into this for 50 cents. So that's a pretty nice little flip for something that I really didn't purchase on purpose. The buyer's total was $56.50. I paid $6.68 in fees, $3.96 in promoted fees. I made a little bit of money on the shipping because this went by first class because it was not a book. Cost of goods sold, again, just 50 cents. This $47 sale plus tax and shipping led to a net profit to me of $38.70. Really interesting piece. This was kind of a fun one to look at. Back over to Etsy. Anthony Wayne, A Name in Arms by Richard Knopf from the University of Pittsburgh Press, published in 1960. This was an illustrated hardcover in its dust jacket. This was part of the big 15,000 book lot from a couple of summers ago. So I'm into this for a whopping 4 cents. I had it listed for $54.99. It was in my sale over on Etsy and sold for $49.49 plus shipping. The buyer's total was $59.51. $5.66 in fees, no offsite fee for this one, $6.13 to ship. A sale with a gross sales price of $49.49 led to a net profit to me of $43.79. So be on the lookout for this one. Anthony Wayne, A Name in Arms. Back over to eBay, a theological dictionary by Reverend Charles Buck from 1830. This is a stereotype edition, 2 volumes in 1 book. So leather-bound theological dictionary. I believe it said on the spine, Buck's Dictionary, and then on the inside it had all this other, as the books of the 1800s did. The title page is like full of text, but essentially it's a theological dictionary written by this Reverend Charles Buck back in the 1830s. Had it listed for $79.99, received an offer of $67.99 plus shipping, and went ahead and sold it. This was also from the very recent 1800 book lot purchase, so I was into this for 50 cents. The buyer paid a total of $80.23. I paid $11.19 in fees, $5.62 in promoted listing fees. Total profit to me, $50.68 on this book. Old religious books for the win. This one also from that lot. This is a book about homemaking. Mary and Russell Wright, A Guide to Easier Living, a new revised edition from 1954, a hardcover in its dust jacket. There were very few of these out there of this particular edition, and that also had their dust jacket. So this one was pretty unusual. I listed it for $99.99. It got a watcher. I sent out an offer and sold this thing for $84.99 plus shipping. The buyer's total, $97.94. I paid $13.58 in fees, $6.38 to ship it. My cost of goods sold, just 50 cents. This book netted me $69.91. A really cool old book. So I think a lot of times people just kind of pass these kind of homemaking books by. I don't know. I suppose this one looked unusual enough that I probably would have comped it if I was picking that lot. But because I was just buying the whole room, I just got it, and it ended up being a super valuable book. These next couple, this is an interesting one. So these next 2 actually have, I think, a total of 4 different transactions in them. I bought, at the end of a sale, a huge collection of legal books from a sale. I paid, I don't know, 93 cents a piece, I think is what it worked out to for these legal books. I got a whole bunch of Ohio Jurisprudence second edition from the 1950s through the 1970s, and American Jurisprudence, also second edition from kind of that same era. And I've had one buyer that has bought a whole bunch of these. This was actually the 4th purchase in this chain. This was, 9 books total for $131.16. All of these but one sold for full price. The Handbook of Law of Evidence is one that I had had for a while, and it was on sale. So that one was a little bit less money, but all in, 9 books for roughly $14.99 a piece, $131.16 plus shipping. The buyer paid for this particular order $169.42. I paid $23.21 in fees, $11.85 for the promoted listing fees. They cost me $26.38 to ship by Ground Advantage. So I saved a little bit of money on the shipping. My cost of goods sold worked out on this particular sale to $8.44, which meant my net profit was $89.19. As I said, this was the 4th sale because here is your flip of the week, but it's 3 separate sales. This person, within the span of about 20 minutes, bought 3 of the Ohio Jurisprudence, then bought 5 more of them, and then bought 6 more of them, all at $14.99 a piece. So I lumped that all into one slide here rather than 3 separate sales. The total price of this was $209.86 plus shipping. Came to $277.50, $38.58 in fees, $19.43 in ad fees. Shipping, Ground Advantage was only $35.06, so I made out pretty well on the shipping. Cost of goods sold, again, worked out to $13.02. So this batch of books netted me $154.44, which when combined with the other batch, it's another $245 essentially in profit on these books. I didn't pay that much for the entire collection. So that is definitely a win. I will take that all day long. Those old legal books, sometimes they can be slow sellers, but oftentimes you will find you'll get an individual who's going to buy 2, 3, 4. I've never had anybody buy this many of them all at once, but this was a really, really good sale, and ended up obviously being very, very profitable. And they sold fairly quickly. I have not had these listed all that long. In fact, I don't even have them all listed yet. I've still got 2 or 3 boxes of these yet to go through as I kind of wade through my piles of stuff. So terrific, terrific sale. Again, I wouldn't probably pay $5 or $6 a piece for these books, which is what they were asking for them at the sale. But if you do that networking, at the end of the sale, you can a lot of times get an opportunity to make an offer on everything that's left. And in this case, I got a whole mess of these books for what worked out to less than $1 a piece, which is a terrific, terrific deal. So, my friends, that's going to put a wrap on this week's episode. I hope everybody had a terrific Black Friday / whatever Cyber into Cyber Monday. To be fair, last week for me was fantastic. This weekend, not so much so, but when I went back and looked at last year's number, that was kind of the case last year. I was really strong through Black Friday. And then Saturday and Sunday last year for me were not very good, and this year has been no exception. I do have a couple of really nice sales that were not included in this that'll be in next week's show over the weekend. So dollar-wise, it's been okay. Transaction volume-wise, it's actually been pretty slow for me so far this weekend. But if you got something out of this and you're watching on YouTube, please do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. If you're not currently a subscriber to the YouTube channel or a follower of the podcast, please consider doing that as well. We'd love to have you on board. I do these shows pretty much every Monday. They are available to members first. So if signing up for a membership is something you would be amenable to, you can do that for the low, low price of $4.99 as well. And then we also do typically a live show every Wednesday morning at 11 o'clock where we just get on and chat about all things reselling. As far as Whatnot, still right now doing 2 shows a week. Wednesday nights at 7 is kind of a mix of different vintage type books. This weekend, or this Wednesday rather, is going to be Western paperbacks. Fridays are going to be continuing into the future science fiction and fantasy books. The next 3 weeks worth of those at least are all hardcovers, so some really nice stuff in there. I mentioned at the time I bought all those science fiction books that the seller of those also had a huge collection of military books that I was interested in purchasing, and we are currently negotiating a buyout of those as well. If I get those, I will probably add a third Whatnot show to my arsenal, which will probably take place Mondays sometime during the day, that will strictly be military and history books. So be on the lookout for that as well. With that, my friends, I'm going to wrap this thing up. I hope everybody is doing well. Love to hear from you in the comments. Again, if you're not a subscriber, please consider doing that. And until next time, it's time to sell. Thanks, guys. You have been listening to the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you again next time.